welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we are in the truck. We have the 06 behind us on the trailer, and we're heading to Fire Punk to lay some numbers down on the dyno. I'm not sure what to really expect. I do know the current leader for the 72 dyno list is 1218 horsepower. It's a 3rd gen. He's got 250%, dual stock pumps, and then obviously the VS72. But I don't know. I got a few numbers in mind on where I'd like to be, what I think the truck's capable of doing, but we've never had a turbo this small the entire 8 years I've owned this truck. So I know driving it on the street, like, it reacts very nicely, like it feels like it's making good power on the street, but we're also still running our big tunes for like the big single and the compound setup on there. So once we get it dialed in down here on the dyno, I think it'll drive a lot nicer. I do know changing that converter definitely helped. I feel like that converter size is on par to what we need to do. So once we get down here, we're gonna get it slapped on the dyno. I'm not gonna dyno on the radials. I'm gonna use Levon's dyno wheels. Just makes it easier. I had a few sets of wheels and tires that I could have put on it, but every time I've dynoed with those, the truck's always spun. So I guess stay tuned, and I'll catch back up with you guys at Fire Punk. So after that last run at 1300 US, we did notice that the pump was running wide open. We wasn't sure whether it was a small fuel leak, if the feed tubes needed retorqued. So with this being a somewhat easy setup to retorque, we decided to pull the fuel lines off and retorque the feed tubes. We did find that a majority of them were about a quarter turn out. I know it don't seem like a lot, but when you're dealing with rail pressure, every little bit counts. Rail pressure is also key to making power. So once we noticed like we weren't picking up any power, the pump's just commanding wide open, that's where we kind of suspected we had an issue somewhere else. We got LeVon here. We just put this thing through the paces, and explain to us what happened to it.
Well, we made 1,207 horsepower, so that's number one.
Yeah.
I don't know. You say bad because you want to make 1,300 horsepower, but at the end of the day, that's twin turbo numbers. So, like if a customer calls your shop and says, "I need a 1,200 horsepower build," are you going to usually spec a 72 millimeter turbo?
Absolutely.
Generally not. So it's an impressive feat, regardless. To make 1,200 horsepower. But we started off the day with going through fuel quantities. It's with 400% overs. It's a big injector, so it started at 1,100 microseconds, went 1,150, 1,200, 1,250, 1,300, 1,350. We found the feed tubes were losing a little bit of rail pressure. We retorqued feed tubes. We added a 10 bar map sensor so we can see what boost is doing. It's making like 58 pounds of boost on some of the best pulls. We opened the gate, we closed the gates. We've just been all over the board. And then finished the day with going up and down the timing. So we put the timing where I thought it should be beginning of the day. And once we got fuel dialed in, we visited the timing table again. I added 2 degrees and I took 2 degrees away. And adding 2 degrees made the exact same number as what it did before. And taking 2 degrees away, went from 1207 to 1187.
And it was kind of heat.
Yeah, it was hot, but just tells you that like once you get in that sweet spot of timing, there's only so much timing that you can add. And generally, if you add timing and don't pick up power, you're better off taking it back out.
And also at the 1300 US, we were maxing out the CP3 too.
Yeah, it's we're commanding 28, a little over 28,000 rail, and it's averaging like 27.9. So it's still making good rail pressure, but I couldn't really go for any more pulse width because it was just tapped out.
Yeah.
But altogether, I think it was a good day.
Yeah.
Truck still runs good. We got to run on a little bit, but it's not broken.
We need a shift linkage.
You do need to adjust your shift linkage because Cody tried to drive it out of the shop without him in it. That was fun.
We bought a monster truck for
minor detail. But no, it was a good day.
All right, thank you.
Cool.
Now,
good luck.
Next process, we are going to the track, so stay tuned.
Yep. We adjusted shift points too.
Oh yeah.
So for the 72, we're going to lower the shift points 1,000 RPM at least, maybe 1,200 RPM.
Yeah, because normally we're shipping at like 51, 5,200, and we're making peak power right now around 34. So we only really need to run it up to like 3,900, 4,000, and that should be like that prime sweet spot for horsepower. So lowered all that down. Gotta get that 60 foot down.
And the 60 foot, make sure you've got the turbo where you feel comfortable with it. It spools so fast, it's crazy. I was literally dynoing it in the same window I do a stock. You start the run at 2,200 RPM and it comes right on boost. It made like 1,830 foot-pounds of torque.
To like the limiter is what, like 2
Yeah.
seconds to like max
Yeah.
boost.
High idle at 1,400 RPM and floor it is 2.5 seconds to the limiter. So it's easy to drive. So good luck, go race, go fast.
Always. It's gonna break in the parking lot.
That's right.
All right. Well, obviously, it's the next day. The last clip that you seen, my phone actually died on Levon. So the way home, I charged it and I instantly called Don and April, and we kind of discussed a few different things to see if we wanted to make changes. But I think where we're at right now, we're going to try to get some track times, and then depending on the track times is where we're going to, all right, let's downsize these injectors. I do know, like, we are going to go back on the dyno before UCC. That is for sure. Going to the dyno, like, I was expecting a little bit higher number, like I said previously in the video, but there's only so much you can get out of this little 72 millimeter turbo. Like, the number that we are running, that would be like a solid compound setup. I know I have plenty of engine to make the power. It's just, we needed data. We didn't know having the dual gates was going to help us. Having the T6 manifold was going to help us. The bigger injectors helping us. Like, we didn't know if any of that was going to be in our favor. So we have plenty of parts laying around the shop. We're going to try a couple different more combinations on and see if we can just squeeze any more out of it. I mean, this whole air limited class, it is kind of interesting. It's kind of like going to the sled pull world. I mean, you need every little piece of horsepower. One thing I did find when we got home, I could hear a sound. It almost sounded like a converter bolt backed off. And I went through all the converter bolts. They were all good. And then I ended up, we went through valve lash. The valve lash was a little tight, so I was thinking maybe one of the valves was kind of holding itself open a little bit. So we reset valve lash, converter bolts are tight. I put another spring in the wastegate, so that could have been all we needed right there. But we won't know until we go back to the dyno. But I think the next step, like I said, we're gonna go get the 60 foot dialed in, get the suspension dialed in. And then once we were happy with that and the truck is doing what we want it to do for our end result, we'll slap it back on the dyno and just see if we pick up anything else. I do know, like, it was a very nice day. It was hot, it was humid, muggy out. So the air was definitely not in our favor of trying to put down a big number, but it's part of it. It's not easy. Nobody has this setup with this turbo to where it's a copy paste build. So that's going to wrap up this part of the video. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any hints, tips, or tricks, I guess, leave them in the comments below. Anything else, just reach out to me, and I guess we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.